The hum of the tires against the asphalt was the only sound in the car, but inside my head it felt like a siren was going off. My husband Mark was humming a mindless tune, his fingers tapping rhythmically on the steering wheel. He looked so at peace, so incredibly naive. He truly believed we were just heading to his parents' secluded lake house for a healing family reunion. He believed his sisters had finally forgiven us for the inheritance dispute. He believed the nightmare was over. I knew better. I've always known that in Mark's family, forgiveness was just another word for opportunity. "Are you okay, Avery?" Mark asked, casting a quick, concerned glance my way. "You've been gripping that door handle like you're expecting the car to eject you." I forced a smile, though my lips felt brittle. "Just tired, honey, long week." "It's going to be great," he said, returning his gaze to the road. "Mom said she's making her signature lasagna. Even Sarah and Jen are bringing the kids. It's a fresh start." A fresh start? That's what they called it in the group chat Mark didn't know I'd seen. I had installed a mirror app on his old tablet months ago when money started disappearing from our joint account. I wasn't proud of it, but when you marry into a den of vipers, you learn to grow fangs. The messages I'd read last night weren't about lasagna. They were about the papers. They were about a final intervention. They were about making sure Avery, the outsider, the one who kept Mark's spine straight, was finally out of the picture. I looked at the GPS on the dashboard. It showed we were 40 miles out from the lake house. The ETA was 45 minutes. 45 minutes until we walked into a house where Mark's entire family was waiting to corner him, to manipulate his guilt, and to force him into signing over his share of the estate. But then the GPS chirped. A notification popped up on the screen, a reroute. "Construction ahead," the robotic voice announced. "Calculating faster route." Mark frowned. "That's weird. This is the only main road out here." "Just follow it, Mark," I said, my voice dropping to a low, steady calm. "Maybe the GPS knows something we don't." I had spent 3 hours last night hacking into the shared family location settings. I hadn't just rerouted the car, I had changed the destination entirely. We weren't going to the lake house. We were going to a very specific address in the city, an office where a private investigator and a notary were waiting with the files I'd spent 6 months compiling. "Wait," Mark said, slowing down as the GPS instructed him to take a sharp left onto a dirt path that led back toward the highway. "This is taking us away from the lake." "Avery, check the phone." "The signal is spotty," I lied, keeping my phone screen tilted away from him. "The GPS says this is a shortcut to avoid a massive pileup." "Do you really want to be stuck in traffic with your sisters calling every 5 minutes asking where the wine is?" Mark sighed, his shoulders dropping. "Good point. I just want to get there and get it over with." "Oh, we're going to get it over with, Mark," I whispered, staring out the window at the darkening sky. "One way or another." As we hit the highway, heading in the opposite direction of his family's trap, my heart began to race. The predator thinks the prey is cornered, but they've forgotten one thing: I'm the one behind the wheel of this narrative. Have you ever wondered how long it takes for a person to realize their entire foundation is built on a lie? For Mark, that clock was ticking down, and I was the only one who could hear the countdown. As the car sped down the interstate, the city lights began to replace the dense forest of the Lake District. Mark's grip on the steering wheel tightened. He wasn't stupid, just hopeful. And in his family, hope was a dangerous weakness. "Avery, the GPS says we're entering the downtown area," Mark said, his voice cracking slightly. "The lake house is north. We're heading south. What is going on with this thing?" "It's just recalibrating, Mark," I said, my voice as smooth as glass. "I told you there was a massive accident on the main bridge. This is the detour, trust the tech." "I should call my mom," he muttered, reaching for his phone in the center console. "They're going to be wondering why we're an hour late. Sarah hates it when the food gets cold." My heart hammered against my ribs. If he made that call, the trap would spring too early. His mother, the grand matriarch of manipulation, would spin a web of lies so thick he'd turn the car around right there. "Your phone is dead, remember?" I said quickly, intercepting his hand. You left it on the charger at home. You're using mine for the GPS. He looked at the dashboard, then back at me, a flicker of suspicion crossing his face. I thought I grabbed it. Are you sure? Positive, I lied. His phone was actually in my purse, turned off and wrapped in foil to block any tracking pings from his sister's Find My Phone app. Just drive. We're almost there. I leaned back, watching the neon signs flash by. My mind drifted back to 3 months ago, the night I found the ledger. Mark's father had passed away a year prior, leaving a substantial estate that was supposed to be split equally. But Mark's sisters, Sarah and Jen, had convinced their grieving mother that Mark was unstable and incapable of managing his share. They had drafted a document, a voluntary surrender of rights, and they intended to make him sign it tonight at that reunion. They thought I was just the quiet wife who cooked dinner and stayed out of family business. They didn't realize that before I met Mark, I spent 5 years as a corporate auditor. I don't just see numbers, I see the crimes hidden behind them. I had found evidence that Sarah had been embezzling from the estate for years. Jen was in debt to some very unpleasant people and needed Mark's share to bail herself out. Their healing reunion was nothing more than a coordinated ambush. Wait a second, Mark suddenly braked, pulling the car onto the shoulder of a busy street. This isn't a detour, Avery, look, that's the Miller and Associates building. That's a law firm. Why is the GPS taking us to a law firm at 8 p.m. on a Friday? He turned to me, his eyes wide with a mix of confusion and burgeoning fear. What did you do? I didn't blink. I didn't flinch. I reached into my purse, pulled out his phone, and handed it to him. Power it on, Mark, I said quietly. Read the messages from the group chat named Project Cleanup that you didn't know you were in. Read what your sisters really think of you. Read what your mother planned to put in your lasagna besides just extra cheese. Mark stared at the phone as if it were a live grenade. Project Cleanup. What are you talking about? The truth, Mark, I said, pointing at the glowing office window on the 3rd floor. Our private investigator is up there. He has the bank statements. He has the recordings of your sisters discussing how to handle you. The GPS didn't malfunction. I rerouted our lives because I'm not going to let them destroy you. Mark's hand trembled as he took the phone. The silence in the car was deafening, broken only by the distant sound of city sirens. He was at a crossroads, not just on the map, but in his soul. They're my family, Avery, he whispered, though the conviction was gone from his voice. They're a firing squad, Mark, I replied. And I just took the bullets out of their guns. Mark stared at the phone screen as it flickered to life. I watched his face, the way his eyes darted back and forth as he scrolled through weeks of messages he was never meant to see. The group chat, titled Project Cleanup, was a digital catalog of cruelty. His sisters, Sarah and Jen, had mocked his intelligence, joked about how easy it was to manipulate his grief over their father, and detailed exactly how they would corner him at the lake house. They said I'm a liability, Avery, Mark whispered, his voice cracking. My own sisters. They said Mom would handle the emotional part to make sure I signed the papers. I felt a surge of white-hot anger, not for myself, but for the man beside me. Mark was kind to a fault, and they had turned that kindness into a target. Read the last one, Mark, I said, my voice trembling with suppressed rage. Read what Sarah said about the accident they were planning if you refused to sign. He scrolled to the bottom. His face went pale, a ghostly white that looked terrifying under the streetlights. The message from Sarah was blunt. If he doesn't sign by midnight, we tell the board he's been stealing from the estate. We have the forged documents ready. He either loses the money or his freedom. Choose one. I can't believe this, Mark choked out, dropping the phone into his lap. This is my family, my blood. Blood doesn't make you family, Mark, loyalty does. And they traded yours for a bigger inheritance months ago. I reached over and squeezed his hand. It was ice cold. I've been tracking Sarah's bank accounts. She's the one who's been stealing, not you. She's been funneling estate money into a shell company to pay off her gambling debts. That's why she needs your signature to cover the hole she dug. Suddenly, my phone rang. The caller ID flashed, mother-in-law. Don't answer it, I warned. But Mark was in a daze. Before I could stop him, he swiped accept and put it on speaker. "Mark, where on earth are you?" His mother's voice was sweet, dripping with that fake southern charm she used like a weapon. "The lasagna is getting cold, honey. Sarah and Jen are already here. We're all waiting for you. Is everything okay?" Mark looked at me, his eyes pleading for a way out. I leaned closer to the phone, my voice steady and cold. "He's not coming, Margaret," I said. There was a sharp silence on the other end. I could almost hear the gears turning in that woman's head. "Avery, is that you? Why are you being so dramatic?" Put Mark on the phone. "Mark is busy looking at the project cleanup chat," I replied. I felt Mark flinch beside me, but I didn't stop. "And he's also looking at the evidence I gathered regarding Sarah's embezzlement. We aren't at the lake house, Margaret. We're at Miller and Associates. Our lawyer is currently filing a restraining order and a formal request for a full forensic audit of the estate." The sweetness vanished from Margaret's voice instantly. It was replaced by a low, guttural hiss. "You little snake, you've always tried to turn him against us. Mark, don't listen to her. She's trying to steal your family away from you. Come to the house right now or you'll regret it." "Goodbye, Margaret," I said, and I disconnected the call. The silence that followed was heavy. Mark leaned his head against the headrest, tears finally escaping his eyes. "What do we do now, Avery? They're going to destroy us. They have the forged papers, they have the influence." "No," I said, putting the car back into gear and pulling into the law firm's parking lot. "They have a plan that relied on us being in that house, isolated and blindsided. They didn't plan for me to reroute the GPS. Tonight, the hunter becomes the hunted." We stepped out of the car, the cool night air hitting our faces. Across the street, I saw a black SUV pull up. It was Sarah's car. They had tracked Mark's phone before I could fully shield it. They were here. "Stay behind me, Mark," I whispered, clutching my briefcase tightly. "It's time for the final audit." The glass doors of Miller and Associates slid open with a hiss, but the air outside was already thick with the screech of tires. Sarah's black SUV pulled up to the curb, and she jumped out, her face twisted in a mask of artificial concern that quickly dissolved into pure venom when she saw me. Jen was right behind her, clutching a manila folder, the forged documents. "Mark, thank God!" Sarah shouted, ignoring me entirely. "Avery has lost her mind. She's kidnapping you. Mom is hysterical at the lake house." Mark stood frozen for a second, his shadow long under the streetlights. But then he did something I'd been waiting for since the day we got married. He stepped forward, not toward them, but in front of me. "The GPS didn't break, Sarah," Mark said, his voice surprisingly steady. "And Avery didn't kidnap me, she saved me." Jen stepped up, waving the folder. "Mark, don't be a fool. We have proof you've been mishandling Dad's investments. We were trying to protect you by keeping this in the family. Just sign the management transfer and all of this goes away. No police, no scandal." I stepped out from behind Mark, my briefcase clicking open. "The only one going to the police tonight is you, Sarah." I pulled out a stack of color-coded spreadsheets. "I didn't just reroute the GPS. I rerouted your bank transfers. You thought you were using a secure shell company to hide the $200,000 you took from the estate last quarter. But you used the family's old business server, the one I still have admin access to." Sarah's face went from pale to a sickly shade of gray. You're lying, you don't have anything." "I have the IP logs," I said, my voice dropping to a whisper that carried in the quiet night. "I have the timestamps that match your login from your house. And most importantly, I have the testimony of the notary you tried to bribe to backdate these forged papers. He's sitting upstairs in that office right now with our attorney." Jen looked at Sarah, her eyes wide with panic. "Sarah, you said she wouldn't find out. You said she was just a housewife." "Shut up, Jen," Sarah snapped, but the damage was done. Mark looked at his sisters, really looked at them, and I saw the last spark of familial obligation die in his eyes. "You were going to put me in jail to cover your own theft. You were going to use Mom to guilt me into poverty." "Mark, honey, listen," Sarah started, reaching for his arm. "No," Mark said, pulling away. "The reunion is over. Avery and I are going upstairs to finish the paperwork for the audit. Tomorrow, the bank will freeze all your accounts. If there's anything left of the inheritance after the legal fees, you can split it between yourselves while you figure out how to pay back what you stole." "You can't do this," Jen screamed as we turned toward the elevator. "We're family." I paused at the door, looking back one last time. "Family doesn't build traps for the people they love, they build bridges. You chose the trap, now you're the ones caught in it." The elevator doors closed on their shouting. Upstairs, in the quiet, mahogany-lined office, Mark finally let out a breath he'd been holding for years. He looked at the documents waiting on the desk, not the ones his sisters wanted, but the ones that would finally secure our future and hold the guilty accountable. "You really did reroute everything, didn't you?" Mark asked, a small, tired smile touching his lips. "I told you, Mark," I said, squeezing his hand as I handed him the pen. "I'm an auditor, I don't like it when the books don't balance. And tonight, for the first time in a long time, the scales are perfectly even." Justice wasn't loud. It was a signature on a page and the quiet hum of a GPS finally reaching its true destination: home.